NASA is returning to the moon. After 50 years of silence, the Artemis II mission is ready for liftoff. On the surface, it looks like a triumph of human engineering. But behind the closed doors of mission control, there is a growing sense of unease. Because NASA isn't just going back to explore. They are going back because they've been summoned. In 1972, during the final hours of the Apollo 17 mission, a classified transmission was intercepted. It wasn't a mechanical glitch, and it wasn't a solar flare. It was a rhythmic, pulsing signal coming from a crater that shouldn't exist on any lunar map. NASA labeled those coordinates as Zone 44. And for 5 decades, they enforced a global blackout on that specific region of the lunar far side. But now, Artemis II has been programmed with a flight path that leads directly over it. The public believes the 4 astronauts are there to test the Orion capsule. But the reality is far.
But the manifest shows something different. They are carrying a specialized AI sensor designed not to look at the moon, but to listen to what's underneath it. The question isn't whether we can survive the journey. The question is, what happens when that signal starts calling back? For 50 years, the world was told that we stopped going to the moon because of the cost. But the internal memos at NASA suggest a much darker reality. Something happened during the Apollo 17 lunar night. Something that terrified the highest levels of government. A set of high-resolution photographs was taken of the Shackleton crater, images that have never been released to the public. The astronauts reported a shifting geometry on the surface, structures that seemed to vanish when the sun hit them. Now, Artemis II is heading back to that exact location. But this time, the crew is not just composed of pilots. One of the mission's primary objectives is hidden under the title Atmospheric Study. In reality, it is a deep crust acoustic scan. NASA's private satellites have detected a vibration coming from inside the moon. A vibration that matches the frequency of a human heartbeat. The Artemis II crew has been instructed to maintain radio silence as they pass the 180-degree mark of the far side. If they see something, the world will not hear about it in real time. There is a 40-minute window where the Orion capsule will be completely cut off from Earth. The question is, what has NASA told the crew to do if they find that the vibration has stopped? Or worse, what if it has started to follow them? As the Orion spacecraft approaches the lunar horizon, the tension within the deep space network is reaching a breaking point. It is not the mechanical failure that they fear. It is the repetition of history. On the night of December 14th, 1972, Harrison Schmitt, the last man to walk on the moon, reportedly saw a flash of light near the Aristarchus crater. His heartbeat spiked, but the official transcript shows a sudden, unexplained gap of 3 minutes. Artemis II is equipped with cameras that operate on a spectrum beyond human vision. Thermal imaging, ultraviolet sensors, and LiDAR that can peer through miles of lunar regolith. Why would a simple orbit mission require equipment designed to detect hidden subterranean structures? The answer lies in the leaked coordinates of the Black Horizon. A region where the moon's gravity slightly fluctuates as if something massive is shifting deep within its core. The 4 astronauts on Artemis II have been given a black box protocol. If their communication is interrupted by a non-human frequency, they are not to respond. They are to shut down all external lights and drift in total darkness until they regain Earth's line of sight. Imagine the silence inside that capsule. 4 humans floating in the shadow of a world that was supposed to be dead, listening to the metallic thumping of something attempting to sync with their own pulse. NASA calls it static interference, but the retired engineers from the Apollo era have a different name for it. They call it the knocking. And according to them, the moon has been waiting for us to come back to finish what was started in 1972.
The silence of the lunar far side is not empty. It is heavy with the weight of 50 years of secrets. As Artemis II reaches the point of no return, the black box sensors have already begun picking up anomalies. Small metallic echoes reflecting off the surface where no human-made object has ever landed. NASA's official mission map shows a smooth path, but the internal navigation systems are reacting to mass concentrations that shouldn't be there. It is as if the lunar interior has been rearranged since we last left. The crew has been trained to ignore the visual hallucinations reported by previous lunar orbiters. Lights that move in perfect geometric patterns, shadows that seem to crawl against the direction of the sun. But how do you ignore a shadow that is moving faster than your own spacecraft? The Orion capsule is now entering the dead zone, where the Earth is blocked by 3,000 miles of solid rock.
In this total isolation, the astronauts are instructed to activate the Aegis encryption, a frequency designed to mask the ship's presence from anything that might be listening from the craters below. The world expects a celebration, a new era of space travel. But in the dark of the lunar shadow, the mission has turned into a game of hide and seek. We are not returning to the moon to plant a flag. We are returning to see if the Watchers are still there, or if they have already begun their journey toward us. The telemetry data is coming in now, and the pulse from the Shackleton crater is no longer a vibration. It has become a voice, and it is speaking in a language that our AI is only beginning to translate. The message is simple, and it is not a welcome. The translation is still fragmented, but the AI has identified a repeating sequence, a sequence that matches the exact coordinates of every major human city on Earth. It is not a greeting. It is a coordinate map. At NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, the atmosphere has shifted from excitement to a cold, calculated panic. They are seeing things on the Artemis II high-definition feeds that are being scrubbed from the live public broadcast. Tall, thin spires of obsidian-like material rising from the center of the Tchaikovsky crater, structures that were not in the satellite photos taken just 6 months ago. The moon is changing. It is reacting to our presence. One of the astronauts reported a sudden electrical hum inside their helmet, a sound that bypassed the ship's comms and vibrated directly through their skull. They described it as 1,000 whispers, all speaking at once, telling them to turn back.
But Orion cannot turn back. The laws of orbital mechanics have locked them into this path. They are now passing over the lunar South Pole, the dark, frozen region where water ice was supposed to be the greatest discovery. Instead, the sensors are detecting heat signatures, massive pockets of thermal energy coming from 3 miles beneath the ice. Something is waking up. Something that has been dormant since the end of the last ice age, waiting for the specific magnetic signature of a modern spacecraft to return. The public sees the beautiful blue marble of Earth rising over the lunar horizon. But the crew is looking down at the gray desert, and they are seeing the surface ripple like water. The moon is not a satellite. It is a seal. And Artemis II just broke it.
The signal has changed. It is no longer a whisper. It is a command. The Orion capsule's navigation computer is fighting an external override, a digital ghost that is rewriting the mission's flight code in real time. Mission Control has lost the ability to abort. They can only watch as the spacecraft is pulled closer to the lunar surface than ever intended. The astronauts are reporting a shimmering in the vacuum of space, as if the very airless environment around the moon is beginning to distort. From the shadows of the Aitken Basin, a faint blue light is rising, piercing through the absolute darkness of the far side. It is not a natural phenomenon. It is a beacon, and it is perfectly synchronized with the heartbeat detected earlier. One of the crew members has stopped responding to verbal checks. They are staring out the small port window at a structure that is now visible to the naked eye.
It is a gateway carved into the side of a mountain that NASA has hidden from every civilian telescope for decades. The Aegis encryption has failed, and the ship's internal speakers are now broadcasting a sound that shouldn't exist. It is the sound of a countdown, but the numbers are being whispered in a voice that sounds disturbingly human. As the Earth finally begins to reappear over the horizon, the crew realizes that the blue marble looks different. The continents are shrouded in a strange silver mist, and the radio frequencies from home have gone silent. Artemis II is no longer a mission of return. It was a key, and now that the door is open, the Watchers are no longer looking at the moon. They are looking at us. And the countdown has reached 0. The silver mist on Earth is not a natural weather event. It is a global synchronization of the lunar signal. In the final moments of the recorded data, the Orion capsule's hull began to resonate with a low, vibrating frequency. The astronauts' biometric sensors showed their heart rates perfectly aligning with the pulse of the moon, as if they were no longer individuals, but parts of a single network. The high-definition cameras captured one last image before the feed cut to static. It was the gateway in the lunar mountain, but it wasn't an entrance. It was a mirror. And what it reflected wasn't the stars or the spacecraft. It reflected a version of Earth that hasn't existed for millions of years. NASA's deep space antennas are now receiving a massive data dump from the lunar far side.
It is an archive containing the history of every civilization that has ever looked up at the moon and wondered if they were alone. The record shows that we have reached this exact point before, and every time, the result has been the same. The Watchers are not here to invade. They are here to reset. The silence that follows is the most terrifying part of the Artemis II mission. Because when the signal finally returns, it won't be the voice of the astronauts we hear. It will be the sound of the moon finally coming home. And as the sun sets on the final day of the mission, the world realizes that the moon wasn't following us. We were following the moon. And now, we have arrived at its destination.
The final transmission from the Orion capsule didn't contain words. It contained a series of high-frequency pulses that paralyzed the computers at mission control. Every screen in the room turned white, except for a single line of text appearing in a language that existed before the first human walked the Earth. The message translates to, "The collection is complete." On the lunar surface, the vast craters that we thought were caused by asteroid impacts are beginning to glow with a dull inner light. They are not craters. They are the eyes of a machine larger than any continent. And for the first time in an eon, those eyes are opening. Back on Earth, people in every time zone are looking up at the sky, watching as the moon appears to grow larger, its orbit decaying at a rate that defies every law of physics. It is moving toward us, not to collide, but to dock. The silver mist has now covered every major ocean, acting as a liquid conductor for the lunar frequency. And as the moon reaches its final position, the Watchers have finally stepped through the gateway. They do not look like monsters. They look like us, but with eyes that have seen the birth and death of stars. They have come to collect the data that humanity has generated over the last 10,000 years. The mission of Artemis II was never about space travel. It was the final signal, the bell that rings at the end of a long cosmic day. As the last satellite feed from Earth flickers out, a single voice broadcasts across every radio, every phone, and every mind on the planet. It says, "Thank you for your service. The experiment is now over." The screen goes black. The silence is absolute. And the moon, for the first time in history, begins to hum with a sound of satisfaction. In the cold vacuum of space, the Artemis II capsule has become a ghost ship, a floating monument to human curiosity that went too far. The Earth below is no longer a world of nations. It is a planet-wide receiver, vibrating in perfect harmony with the lunar pulse. The Watchers have not fired a single weapon. They didn't need to. By simply connecting our minds to the lunar network, they have archived our memories, our history, and our very essence into the moon's obsidian core. Deep within the lunar crust, the heartbeat has stopped, replaced by a low mechanical thrum
that signifies the machine is fully operational. The moon is no longer drifting away from us. It is anchoring itself, becoming the permanent command center for the next phase of our evolution. At NASA, the last remaining engineers sit in a dark room, watching the final telemetry data scroll across the monitors.
The data shows that the moon's mass is increasing, as if it is absorbing the silver mist from Earth's atmosphere. One final image flickers onto the screen from a deep space probe. It shows the moon not as a gray rock, but as a glowing, translucent sphere, revealing a core made of ancient golden light. The voice that spoke to the world has one last thing to say, a whisper that echoes in the mind of every human left on the surface. It says, "The reset is complete. Welcome to year 0. The stars begin to fade as the lunar light intensifies, washing the world in a silent silver glow. The story of humanity as we knew it has ended. But the story of the moon has only just begun." The silver glow is no longer just a light. It is a physical presence, a thin, shimmering veil that has settled over every mountain, every city, and every soul. The Earth's gravity has begun to soften, as if the planet itself is being untethered from the laws of the solar system. On the lunar surface, the gateway has expanded, turning the entire far side of the moon into a massive, swirling vortex of energy. The Artemis II capsule, now empty of its human life, is being drawn into that vortex, a tiny sacrifice to the machine that has watched us for eons. Across the globe, the silver mist is beginning to solidify, forming crystalline structures that reach toward the sky, like antennas waiting for a final command. The whispers in the minds of humanity have changed tone. They are no longer voices. They are a song. A song that carries the data of 1 billion lives being uploaded into the lunar core for safekeeping. NASA's monitors show one last terrifying statistic. The moon's rotation has completely stopped. It is now fixed, staring at Earth with an unblinking golden eye as the final stage of the reset begins. The sky is no longer blue. It is the color of polished chrome, reflecting the new reality of a world that no longer belongs to its inhabitants. The Watchers are not leaving. They are moving in. And as the last candle of human civilization flickers out, the moon begins to move again. Not around the Earth, but away from the sun, taking us with it into the deep, dark silence of the unknown. The sun is now nothing more than a distant, fading spark in the chrome sky as the Earth and Moon begin their journey as a twin-world system into the void. The silver mist has fully crystallized, turning the Earth's surface into a giant, reflective mirror that bounces the lunar signal back and forth in an infinite loop. There is no more day. There is no more night. There is only the steady state. Inside the lunar core, the memories of humanity are being sorted, categorized, and stored in the Great Archive, ready to be used as fuel for the next creation. The Watchers have taken their places within the new crystalline towers, overseeing the transition of our world from a biological nursery to a data storage hub. NASA's last transmission was not a distress call,
It was a final automatic status report showing that the Earth's core has cooled by 50%. The planet is no longer generating its own heat. It is being kept alive by the lunar heartbeat, a life support system for a world that has become a museum.
The Artemis II capsule, once it entered the vortex, did not disappear. It was dismantled and reassembled into a probe that is now heading toward Mars. Because the moon is not done. It was only the first lock to be opened in this solar system. As we drift further into the dark, the whispers have finally stopped, replaced by a single resonant tone that vibrates through the very atoms of our bodies. It is the sound of a machine that is perfectly tuned, a world that is finally correct. We are no longer the masters of our destiny. We are the artifacts of a civilization that was allowed to exist just long enough to provide the data the moon required. And as the last trace of our solar system disappears into the distance, the golden eye of the moon blinks once. The experiment is not just over. It is being deleted. Ready for the next year zero, in a different corner of the galaxy.
The deletion process is not a flash of light. It is a slow, methodical fading of reality. The crystalline towers on Earth have begun to dissolve into fine silver dust, the same dust that covers the lunar surface. The memories stored in the moon's core are being compressed, turned into pure mathematical equations that define the rise and fall of human history. The Watchers are now retracting the gateway, folding the space-time around the moon until the lunar far side is no longer accessible from our dimension. As the Earth-Moon system enters the deep interstellar void, the laws of biology are finally being overwritten by the laws of the machine.
The silver dust is now the only thing left of our cities, our oceans, and our dreams. NASA's last recorded data point shows the distance between Earth and the moon closing to zero. They are merging. Two worlds, becoming one single hollow sphere of obsidian and light. This is the final transformation. The moon has consumed its parent planet to fuel its journey to the next star system. There is no one left to witness the end, and no one left to remember the beginning. The steady state is now absolute. The countdown has not just reached zero, it has been erased from time itself. The archive is sealed. The experiment is finished. And with this final breath of the lunar signal, the story is over.